The advice and opinions expressed by the host of Autism Live and her guests are meant solely as suggestion and should not be in any way construed as child-specific advice. The Center for Autism and Related Disorders advises working with a board-certified behavior analyst who has experience with autism before starting any intensive behavioral intervention. Any choices you make in determining your child's treatment are completely at your own discretion.
Good morning and welcome to Autism Live. I'm Shannon Penrod, and we are webcasting to you live from the Warner Center in Woodland Hills, California. Thrilled to be here with you on this wonderful Wednesday. You know that I love Wednesdays because we start with Ask Dr. Doreen, which is the hour that Dr. Doreen Granpeesheh gives us where she answers your questions. It just doesn't get any better than that. And then in our second hour, we have Let's Talk Autism with Shannon and Nancy, my good friend Nancy Alspaugh-Jackson, the Executive Director of Autism Care and Treatment today, joins me for that hour, and that is a wild and woolly hour. Today, our special guests on the show, we have two because one just wasn't enough. It's April. We have Ron Sandison, who is with us. He is a very intelligent, fabulous, spiritual young man who's just written a book about autism and faith, and he's going to be talking with us about that. He is on the spectrum, and he talks very candidly with us about how his mom helped him to focus his interests and help him to be the best that he could be, and that's a pretty amazing person. And then we also have one of our autism family portraits today. Robin Hogerhuis is going to be with us today. She is she's an amazing mom, two sons, two on the autism spectrum, and she's going to tell us her family story and what it's like for her and her family. Robin has been on the show twice now for two different things. Actually, three different things now that I think about it. She is very involved with Fullerton Cares, an amazing organization that we love to talk about here on the show because as an organization, they have changed the landscape of their community. Robin has been a part of that and helped to bring dance and movement to that community. But she, as a result of her being on the show, we loved her so much, we introduced her to her friends, and now she works for Skills. That's how it works. We see good people, we hang on to them. But so Robin's going to be with us today and talking about her individual family and what it's been like for her. So all that's coming up. All of it is meant to be interactive. Kelby's going to show you some of the different ways that you can participate with us, some of the different ways that you can get your question to the forefront so that potentially our guests and experts and Dr. Granpeesheh could potentially be having a conversation with you. We want to remind you that our homepage is autism-live.com. Many things to do there. Including participating on the live feature. So all of that is free. There's no charge for any of that. It can be as anonymous as you would like for it to be. Put your cursor in the box on our website that says your question, type, hit enter, and it shows up here on my screen. Great way for us to communicate with you. All right, my friends, it is time for Ask Dr. Doreen.
Dr. Doreen Granpeesheh is the
Dr. Doreen is an expert in autism.
Doreen Granpeesheh.
Dr. Granpeesheh.
Dr. Doreen Granpeesheh.
Dr. Doreen Granpeesheh is a visionary in the field of autism. Now you can ask her questions on Ask Dr. Doreen.
Welcome to Ask Dr. Doreen. We're here with Dr. Doreen Granpeesheh.
Good morning.
Thank you for being here this wonderful
Oh, it's a
morning.
pleasure. Always
Always
good
a
to be
thrill
here.
for us to have you here.
Thank you.
Are an amazing expert. I think the preeminent expert in the field of autism
Well, thank you.
in the world. And you are a true visionary. You've worked in this field for more than 30 years. That doesn't seem like it could be possible, but it's true. And you've worked with all different kinds of individuals from very young children up through adults and into senior citizen years who are on the autism spectrum. So you have such a vast array of knowledge, and you've really made such a huge difference. You've left a wide legacy, and
Thank you
you're
very
young
much.
enough that I know you're not even halfway done.
Oh my God.
And I'm grateful for that.
I don't know how much longer I'll last, but I'm not that young. But
You
thank
are,
you.
you are young enough, and you're, more importantly, you're young at heart.
Thank you.
And as I said, you're a visionary. You see what's coming and help to prepare us as a community. And you're here. You donate this hour to answer questions from people. We do like to remind everybody that there is no expert who could give individual specific advice. So it's not about getting advice, but if you write in your question and you're as specific as possible, it gives Dr. Grandpichet an opportunity to widen your knowledge of what kinds of things might be going on, which so many of you have written in and said how helpful that is to you when you go back to your experts. Because it's important for people to actually see and interact with the people that they're working with to give advice. So we just like to be clear about that point.
Definitely true. That's
Okay,
right.
but having said that, as I said, you're amazing.
Well,
Your
thank you so much,
knowledge in
Shannon.
this
It's just,
field.
I think the way to look at the information we hand out here is just, it sort of gives you direction.
Yes.
And then I think a lot of parents need to then go find a local person, usually a BCBA or a psychologist or someone who has experience to kind of guide the details.
And I always like to remind people that one of the best places to start is to go to www.centerforautism.com. When you get there, it's a very comprehensive website with a lot to do, but I think the first best thing to do is to click on the locations tab and see all of the different places in the United States where there are CARD offices already set up.
Mm-hmm.
And if there's one that's close to you, say within 30 miles, then I would encourage you to call the 800 number and get started with talking about if you can get CARD services started. My family had CARD services, and I'm going to forever be grateful.
Thank you very much.
And because you are the founder of CARD, and you are a hands-on person, you are the fearless leader who, I've always thought that what CARD did was amazing, and I can still see that the teaching trickles down from you. What people are doing in homes and in centers is a direct reflection of what you have done and what you have learned.
Thank you.
That's a
I hope
pretty
so.
amazing thing.
No, it is. It's amazing also on the clinical front. I mean, I think it's very nice to see a lot of people at CARD who are actually even much better trained than I am, because they are much more recent or updated, I would say, and or have specialized in specific areas, and it all comes together here. We all learn from each other. And I think that's one of the things at CARD is that, we have over 200 BCBAs here, and we do have the kind of the forum to learn from each other. And that's and we have a lot of very, very amazing psychologists, and of course we have Linda as our physician, and we all teach each other, and that's a very nice opportunity here. So it helps our families. What I hope to be able to accomplish over the next few years at CARD is just to make people nicer, just to teach people to be nicer to each other and to the families and to the staff. We have well over 2,000 therapists, and it's just hard to manage all of it, but hopefully we're providing a useful service.
And it's a huge family, and you.
It is a big family.
And you are the fearless leader of that family. You are the
Thank you.
matriarch
I
of the
am.
family, and that's a good
Mom.
thing. All right, we're going to jump into some questions here that you guys have written in. Let's start with, what's the best way to teach sight words to a struggling reader? She is 7. And
Right.
thanks.
Right. Yeah, so, I mean, I have a lot to say about reading programs, and it's a little bit difficult to answer this question. There's you can learn a lot about teaching sight words if you go to Skills. We have a whole program on this in the Skills website. So you would go to www.skillsforautism.com. There you go. Thank you, Shannon.
Little,
There
there we
you
go. I was
go.
trying to get it in the shot. Skills made this for me because I could never remember all of the information, and
That's
we refer
hilarious.
to it a lot because it's a great thing.
Yes.
So 877-975-4559 is the phone number that you can call, or as Dr. Grandpichet was saying, skills for FOR autism.com.
And I think Skills with the number 4 autism, it works as well. But so just get on Skills. There is a section for reading under the academic curriculum, and that will guide you. There's a lot of different things you can do with sight reading. There's many really good reading programs out there which are separate from, a more comprehensive ABA program. But at 7, I think it's pretty important to figure out what you're doing. Because you're looking at reading, and this is a purely academic skill, you really should get your school district involved. This is an issue where you need an IEP, and you need to have them produce goals for you. You can certainly use skills to pull out goals, and skills is often very useful for that. But it is important to get your IEP in place because your school should be supporting you and teaching this skill.
Absolutely. And I have to say, because I'm a big Pinterest fan, that if you go on Pinterest, there are all kinds of creative things for teachers that parents can use too. My favorite one for sight words, it's crazy. And I just was thinking about this the other day because we got something in the mail and it came with a whole bunch of bubble wrap. And bubble wrap is about to be gone forever.
Oh
but
my
son had such a good time popping. He was like, "Can I pop the bubbles?" And there is a whole thing on Pinterest about taking sight words and writing them on the bubbles, and they only get to pop it if they can
read it.
Clever.
Very clever.
Pinterest. It's really good for things like that. We have a Pinterest page for Autism Live too. You can go and check out. I put things on it all the time that I think are just way clever.
That's awesome. I didn't know that.
I
love Pinterest. Pinterest is amazing.
Isn't it so much fun? We cut it out of the interview that we did with Temple Grandin in the car. It started with me talking about Pinterest, about her, and me saying that I can lose 2 hours on Pinterest like that, as if I've been taken away by wolves and I don't know where I've been. But Kelby fortunately cut that part out. But we start the interview with me saying to her, "What do you do that you can get lost for 2 hours?" Because I was talking about Pinterest. Anyway, all right, moving on. Hi, Shannon and Dr. Doreen. I need help with my 5.6-year-old son. He won't sleep in his bed any night. His bed is in my room because there's only one bedroom in my apartment. He falls asleep in his bed, but every night climbs into mine. I take him back and stay a few minutes with him in his bed because he says he's scared. If I leave his bed before he falls asleep, he'll start saying, "Can I come into your bed?" and whining. There's a little night light in the room, but he's still scared. He'll start saying things like, "What's that over there?" Any shadow in the room, he'll ask, "What is that?" and sounds, and looks really scared. I feel really bad for him since he's little. I know he's afraid of the dark. That's why I have a nightlight in the room. Does not matter how many times at night I take him back to his bed, he still comes back. And in the morning, we're both really tired. Please help me. Thank you.
Oh my gosh, that's so tough. I can understand that. So I think what you do, and you're in a unique situation in that your son, you have one bedroom and your son needs to stay in your room. So it actually in some ways will make things a little bit easier. What you'll do to begin this is that you'll move his bed right next to your bed, okay, so that it's directly touching your bed. And that's it. And then you'll sleep that way, and he'll sleep, and you'll both be fine. And he will be in his bed. If he starts to roll over you, then just tuck him in so that like the blanket on your side is closed so that he's in his bed. Put your hand over him and let him sleep. And then very gradually over the course of the next, let's say, month, you will inch his bed away from you. So you'll like open it up a tiny bit, 1 inch, and then leave it that way for a week, and then go maybe 2 inches and leave it that way for 2 weeks, and then open it 3 inches and leave it. So you do very slowly over the course of a month or 2 months or 3 months, however long it takes, to the point where his bed has now moved to the other side of the room. So that's the shaping procedure that you do. Now, in terms of the nightlight, the problem with nightlights is that there's several problems. One is that we don't sleep well when there's lights on. You need total darkness in order for melatonin to be produced in your body. So total darkness is better physiologically for sleep. Second thing is that night lights are actually the reason we see shadows. If you had full light or no light, you wouldn't see shadows, but night lights, you see shadows, and that is what tends to be scary. On the other hand, conversation about these things is very attention seeking or attention giving. So you don't really want to be conversing. I know you want to give him comfort, but now you're giving him comfort physically. He's on you. So he's next to you and you have your hand on him. So please don't converse when he says, what's that, what's this? Just pat him and just calm him down that way, and don't have a communication about it. He'll stop. If you don't converse about it, it'll first get more and then it'll decrease. And that's the way to do it. You just pat him like that, and then he'll stop talking about it, and then you will gradually fade him away. Ideally, try to see if you can eliminate the nightlight. What I would do is I'd probably go out there and buy a bunch of different nightlights that start with high light and go down to the ones that are very, very low. And then I would put it on the far end of the room, and I would basically try to fade it out, because darkness actually allows us to sleep a lot better.
Love it. I happen to love the Uncle Milton toys. They have a...
Oh yeah, I love that. The moon
Yeah, the
thing,
moon one
I love
is
that.
great. They have a whole series of night lights that come with remotes, so that you can turn them off from bed.
That's fantastic.
And they come in different characters, but Jem still has it on the wall. We don't use it anymore, but it still is on the wall. The moon one.
So does Sunny.
Really?
Yeah.
My sister
I mean,
wanted one
he
for
hasn't
Christmas.
turned it on. He hasn't turned it on for years.
But it's
I
there.
just saw it there the other day, and I was like, I remember that thing.
Right? And it comes with a lot of informational stuff. But what I love about it is it's got the remote, and every time you click it, it shows you a different phase of the moon.
Right.
So you can get it. I don't know what the actual names for it, but we call it the fingernail moon. You can start with a full moon and get it down to the
it's something
fingernail.
like phases of the moon or something like that.
Yeah, and there's like the full gibbous and the
It's very
waning
good.
gibbous
It's really
and the,
good.
you know.
Yeah.
But great thing, and it's decorative.
It's a National Geographic toy.
But the manufacturer that makes it though is Uncle Milton, because we've had them on the show.
Okay, there you go.
And you can get them at I think at Target and
Everywhere.
at Walmart, and it's not that expensive. It's not more than
like
$20.
Yep.
But the remote is my favorite part about it, because we could read and have the night light on,
And that helps a
turn it
lot.
off. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, very cool. All right, we should take a break. And then when we come back, we've got some more questions that Dr. Grandpichet is going to answer during Ask Dr. Doreen. Stick with us.
Hi everyone, welcome back. It's April, which means it's also spring. And what we're going to be doing today is making our very own chia pets. What's cool about this project, it's an activity that you can revisit with your family as you watch it grow and change. All right, now that I piqued your interest, let's get to it. The materials we'll be needing are water, dirt, arts and craft materials, chia seeds, a container, and nylon. So let's get started. It's super easy. All you're gonna do is you're gonna take an old pair of nylons that you have, you're gonna cut off the toe, and what you're gonna do is you're gonna take some of your chia seeds and sprinkle them at the very bottom. We don't need too much, just a little bit. And then once I've got my chia seeds there, I'm gonna take my dirt and pour that in. And we wanna make sure that we've got quite a bit in there. You want to keep this tail. What this does is acts as a way to soak up the water to feed your little chia plant. So I'm going to take the bottom now. I'm going to tie this into a knot. So now that I've got this little guy, now it's time to decorate him. And you can decorate him however you feel like. What I did is that I made some little features out of felt that I'm going to add to my little guy to give him a face. Now that I've got them all decorated, I'm gonna pour some water into my container and make sure my tail is all nice and soaked up in there. And here's my little buddy. I made a mouse, but you can always make whatever kind of creature your child finds super reinforcing. Make sure they like the little animal that you make so they'll wanna come back and revisit him. As you can see right now, he's a little bald, but hopefully, keeping your fingers crossed, in a week he'll have some hair. With the snap of my fingers, we're gonna go through a week in a few seconds. And oh my gosh, this little guy has changed quite a bit. Can you see how? Yeah, he's got some hair now. You can have your kids describe how this little guy looks to their friends, and you can even work on body parts by having them label all the features that this little guy has on his face. So let's see, what does he have? He's got eyes, a nose, a mouth, and ears. What do you think will happen to him if I stop watering him? Yeah, he probably won't be growing any more hair if I did that. Well, I hope you enjoyed this activity. I know I did. Tune in next time, okay? And until then, craft on. Bye, guys.
Can you see me? Can you see me flying by your side?
Welcome back to Autism Live. We're here with Dr. Doreen Granpeesheh for a segment that we call Ask Dr. Doreen. Dr. Doreen Granpeesheh answers your questions. I'm going to jump right into this next one. We've had a lot of questions about 504s lately. My elementary school child just got diagnosed with ADHD. How soon does a school take action when they get a 504 document in hand? I'm a concerned mom because the teacher is not on the same page as we are. What's my next step? Thank you. Cannot get enough of your advice.
That's nice. Thank you very much. Well, the answer is right away, immediately. So once there's a 504 document in place, they need to implement it. So you need to call an emergency IEP. That's what I would do. Is I would call an emergency IEP and I would say, hey, you guys are not implementing the 504 document. So, hopefully it won't get contentious. But if it does, obviously you can have parent advocacy help you. I know that there are a lot of, depending on where you are, FEET groups usually have someone who's a parent advocate who can help. And, I was going to say California Regional Centers usually would have, but they're going extinct soon. So usually I feel that the only other people who help us when it comes to IEPs are parents. So I would suggest you really get involved with a parent group if you need help.
Yeah.
Of course, special education lawyers will help you as well, but hopefully it won't get that bad.
Absolutely. And, you can request a lot of times that they won't have the teacher there when you call a meeting. You can request that the teacher is there. And I would encourage you to start documenting everything.
Yeah.
Work hard to see if you can get the teacher on the same page with you, but document everything.
So, it's not like the IEP itself where there's like a phase of like you have to be able to, from the time you request, they have something like 20 days to respond and so on and so forth. Once the 504 document is there, everybody has to implement it. And very often, nobody's really even aware of it.
Right, absolutely. Okay, what can you do when an autistic child is having a meltdown? Can you tell when a child is going to have a meltdown? And if so, how could it be prevented? They went on to add that their child is currently getting B12 injections every other day, and there is definitely a difference when they skip a few days versus the days that she gets the shot and after.
Right. So there's a lot of things you can do when a child's having a meltdown, and we can talk about that in a minute, but I think it's important for our viewers to kind of take a step back and look at autism and what we know about autism. There is no magic injection or pill that will all of a sudden take away the symptoms of autism and make things all better. It just doesn't exist. Now, methyl B12 shots can help if the child is a low methylator and needs help with methylation, which obviously is the way that we detoxify. So that is always an important thing because our kids become very highly toxic and then they're kind of out of it. And with methyl B12, they're almost awake and detoxifying like we are. So that's an important thing, and it also probably gives them some energy too, so they can attend better. But it's not going to stop the behaviors, the challenging behaviors, and the other symptoms of autism. With meltdowns, what you cannot look and think, oh, there's a pill that I can give my child, because if there was, which there is, there are things like Risperdal, what you're doing is you're not dealing with the main cause and the issue. You're just suppressing a behavior. You're just kind of turning the child into more of like someone who's sedated so that they don't act out. And that's not what you want, because this is the very, very important thing about meltdowns. A meltdown is communication. Any kind of challenging behavior is communication. It's the child trying to tell you something. In fact, if you think about it, first of all, challenging behaviors are not a symptom of autism, and I keep saying this. They're just a side effect of not being able to communicate. And this is true of pretty much anyone, not just kids with autism. Any child or any adult who has a meltdown, typically developing people, it's because they haven't been able to communicate themselves, and they haven't been able to kind of understand what their sensitivities are. Why is this bothering me so much? How could I better communicate this? And when you think about these things and figure them out to yourself, with yourself, and you're able to actually communicate it with someone, you feel a lot better, and then there's no meltdown. Now, this is exactly what happens with our kids too. So there's different scenarios. For instance, someone might come and tell the child, I need you, I want you to stand in line and do this work, and then after this work, you have to do that work, and so on. And the child just doesn't want to do it. So they have a meltdown, and they learn, oh, every time I have a meltdown, people will leave me alone. So they learn the meltdown is effective. Having a tantrum becomes good communication for them, because every time they want something or want to avoid something, it's an effective way of telling people, leave me alone, I don't want to do this. Or another example would be when you see a child like trying to get a toy from another child, and they'll hit the other child, and they'll grab the toy, and they'll win. They will succeed in taking the toy away. So hitting other people becomes a behavior that's effective. Or a child will throw a tantrum, and the teacher will remove the child from the classroom. And the child internally, without even being aware of it, quite subconsciously, learns, wow, this is pretty cool. Every time I have a tantrum, I can leave school. So this is an effective thing. If you think about it, the only reason typically developing kids don't do the same thing, there's two maintaining factors with typically developing kids that our kids don't experience. One is embarrassment in front of their peers. They're not aware of how the peers are looking at them or perceiving them, because they lack this perspective taking ability. So what happens as a result is they actually couldn't care less. So they'll throw a tantrum and get kicked out of class, and they're not embarrassed by it because of other people looking at it. Typically developing kids are embarrassed, so they won't do that. In fact, typically developing kids are so embarrassed just to be present, they'd like to be invisible if possible. The other factor is that we care a lot about what our parents think, because we want to please our parents. It's reinforcing for us to have a parent say, good job, you did a great thing. With our kids, it's not so reinforcing. They're not aware of what behaviors parents want them to do and what behaviors parents don't want them to do. They're of equal value, negative and positive attention. So a lot of times our kids are not like motivated to be the good kid in class. They'll just throw the tantrum, get kicked out, and they don't realize it has a negative effect on the parent. So what I'm basically trying to say is, it's very important that you realize that having a meltdown is a form of communication. Now, what is the child trying to communicate? I always say there's two things we're trying to communicate. I want something, or I want to avoid something. That's it. So figure out, in each instance, it could be a different thing. So next time your child has a meltdown, just sit there and think about, what is he trying to get or avoid? Usually the child's trying to get a tangible object, something, or they're trying to get attention, okay? Usually what they're trying to avoid is giving up something they like, or a situation they're in that they would rather not be in, like a class. So write those down. Figure out for each time the child has a tantrum, figure out what the function is. This is what I'm talking about, is the function. Once you've identified the function, then we can intervene. Now, the interventions differ based on the function. So let's say a child has a meltdown because they want to avoid being in the classroom. Well, you don't allow them to get out of the classroom when they have a meltdown. You keep them in the classroom. Why? because it gives the child the message that having a meltdown is not effective in getting you out of the classroom. It is no longer an effective form of communication. From now on, if you want to get out of the classroom, you have to ask for a break, either verbally or non-verbally through an icon. You just have to ask for a break. Or let's say a child wants to hit their sibling to grab a toy. You have to stop that and not allow the child to win, to get the toy. So essentially what you do is you're making the communication of the tantrum ineffective. You're making sure that it does not succeed. Once you've done that, then you teach the child a different, more appropriate, more adaptive way of making their needs known. And once they're able to communicate in a more adaptive way, and the non-adaptive way, the meltdown, is not effective, then they will use the more adaptive way. It's really that simple. After half an hour, it's really that simple.
That simple. But you know, when you get it, it is amazing. I love the mom who said, now when my child does something that I don't want them to do, I have to think to myself, what is it that they want? What is it that they want? And when they're doing something I don't want them to do, when I know what they want, give them the exact opposite. So if they wanted attention, I'm going to give them no attention. If they wanted to get out of it, I'm going to make them do it.
Right.
That's a really simple thing.
Unless they ask for it in a nice way.
Right. If they're doing it inappropriately. Right.
Mm-hmm.
So
exactly. Do the opposite.
And once you do that, but that's when they're doing something you don't want them to do. When they're doing something you do want them to do, then we just praise.
Absolutely.
And reinforce, because praise is not always reinforcing, but we always want to pair it with whatever.
And it's a little bit more. It's kind of also like questioning why you don't want them to do something. Like sometimes we don't want our kids to do something because we're embarrassed or because we think it's not good, but there's no real rule about whether it is good or not. I mean, I always question things, like, you know, we maintain a certain type of relationship with our kids, and I always wonder if that's the right way to be. There's no rules around how you are with your kids. Everybody's different.
But I think that one of the hallmarks of the CARD program, and whenever I meet people all the time who go, oh, I don't like ABA because they're training little robots.
And
you know, and then they're forcing kids to not be themselves and be like us, and that's just wrong. And I'm always extra grateful for CARD because I think the difference in CARD is that you meet the kids where they are, and you, with the family, make judgments about, you know, we had somebody on the show recently who said, what's wrong with this? Why can't someone do this? Really, what's wrong with it? And my answer to that was, there are times of the day when there's nothing wrong with this, but if this is all the child can do, then this becomes impossible.
Exactly.
And we want the child to be able to write and communicate and whatever, but once they are able to do this, if there's a part of the day when this makes them feel better, woohoo!
Who cares? Do it on your own. The other side of it is also, I think, so here's the other thing or a different way of saying, like, what's wrong with it. What's wrong with it is that when you're doing this, even if it's not interfering with this, it's interfering with anything else you could learn. Because when our kids get into that mode of self-stimulatory behavior, they're really not paying attention to anything outside of themselves. And this is kind of a commonality they have with kids with ADHD. Kids with attention deficit, it's not like they don't attend to certain things. In fact, they attend to certain things in a very, very extreme way, which is sort of their own things of interest. And that's all they attend to, and that's why they have attention deficit to other things. And it's really important for our kids to, like, in general, for any human being, I think the lesson is just to be more aware. And the more aware you are of all the stimuli around you, the more successful you are. There's no question about that, because you learn to read and see cues that are subtle. And they could be cues about human beings, or cues about the weather, or cues about an accident that's about to happen, whatever it is. The more observant you are, the better you do.
But going back to my point that CARD, you embrace the kids where they are, as they are, and who they are. And so what you see are the kids who graduate from CARD are these creative, polite, caring,
Very sweet, lovely people.
very much themselves. They're
Right.
individuals.
Right.
They have their interests that they're really good at,
Right.
but they're capable of holding a conversation about other things than just their interests. They're well-rounded. They're the people I think we all would like to be, and they're happy kids.
Yeah, and they're nice kids. They're
Yes.
like nice human beings
Yes.
because they never really, they just, you know, they don't become competitive. They don't become mean. They don't try to quash someone else in order to be better.
Right.
They don't have big egos. They don't. None of that exists
Yeah.
in autism, and
Which
that's
is
one
a
of the things I
lovely thing.
love about autism.
Yeah. But I don't think that that's necessarily the case every place else.
Yeah,
I think
that's
Very
interesting.
specific to CARD.
I don't know. I think it's very specific to the nature of autism in some ways, Shannon, because like the nature of autism, you just, if you don't, like, you know, we talk about all the bad things, right, that comes about from not being able to take someone else's perspective. The truth is a ton of good stuff comes about it as well. Like, you know, if you're not able to take someone else's perspective, you're not embarrassed,
Right.
which has downsides, but it also has upsides.
Yes.
You know, so you're just a much more social being in some ways, and you're not going to be all like offended or shy or, you know, try to look good all the time, or none of that exists. They don't care. The kids are just themselves.
Yes.
And there's like really cool stuff that comes out of autism as well.
I remember the first time in kindergarten that Jem stood up and they were talking about, the teacher was saying that there was a holiday coming up, and she said, so if you want to wear your holiday costume, you can. And there was something, Jem still, words are very specific to him, and he stood up and said, oh, I can wear my holiday dress. He didn't say costume, he said holiday dress. And all the kids giggled because he's a little boy and he was talking about a dress. And he turned and he looked at everybody and he said, are you laughing with me or at me?
Fantastic.
In kindergarten, right? And the
Oh my
teacher,
God,
and I
I love
happened
that.
to be there volunteering that day, and the teacher and I looked at each other, and afterwards I cried.
Yeah.
And she said, are you okay? And I said, it was such an amazing moment. It's him noticing what's going on. But now we need to work on him understanding people are going to think those things, and it's okay to not care.
Okay, or Shannon, like here's one of the things I love about that. This is the other side of it that I see, right?
Okay.
Is like what a fantastic world it would be if everyone actually was that direct.
Yeah.
That frank. Like what he did was what I now do. I've gone full cycle from like ignoring people who might laugh at me to just, you know, not caring about it or trying not to care about it or caring more about the people who are with me or whatever it is, right? And learning that you don't have to be embarrassed, you just be blah, 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 all that whole thing. And then with many years later, with wisdom that we learn from life, I've come to the conclusion that when something like that happens, I need to just say, hey, you guys, are you laughing with me or at me?
Yeah.
Because it's an education for them.
Yeah.
It's an awakening for them to think, by the way, you just did something mean.
Yes.
Like, and that's what I love about it is that, you know, his pureness just came out.
Yeah.
And he said, are you laughing with me or at me?
Yeah.
And that's beautiful
Yeah.
in so many ways. And that's what I love about autism is that the complications are not there.
Yeah.
They're just
Yeah.
not, you know, and you
Yes.
can get through the psyche so much faster. It's amazing.
It is an amazing thing. We are going to take a break, and then we're going to come back with more of your questions right after these messages. Stick with us.
It's every parent's desire for their child to have a great start in life. Yet there is a condition affecting more children's lives than pediatric cancer, diabetes, and AIDS combined. Autism strikes 1 in every 150 children.
Today, 1 in 110 kids in the U.S. will be diagnosed with autism. That is a huge jump from 30 years ago when it was 1 in 30,000.
Startling new report finds the number of children with autism is skyrocketing. The Centers for Disease Control estimates 1 in 68 children has a form of autism. Now that's a 30% increase in just 2 years.
I think what kept me was the feeling that, you know, I would have a parent come to my office late at night at UCLA and just fall apart. And this is a long time ago. There were much less back then in terms of services and knowledge and so on. And I would just sit with the family and the parents and walk them through and try to take away some of their fears, you know. And at that point I realized, I think the thing that's actually most important to me is that process. I mean, thank God that I've been very, very lucky and blessed to have so many incredible clinicians join me along the way and just develop CARD in such an amazing, magnificent way. That I could, you know, for me, it was more really about how can I help the families? What can I do for the moms, the dads, you know? It is just, and I feel like, you know, there's no way I would ever really know because I haven't had my own child go through this, but I've experienced it with people a lot of times.
Hi, this is Megan. I'm in first grade all by myself. My teachers are so fabulous. I like to read books. I like to go to my friends' birthday parties. I like to invite my friends to my birthday parties. I once had a sleepover with a friend. I like to have play dates with my friend. I'm the best reader in my class. I like to go to the library. I like to read different series of books. And here's how I learned to do all these things. By my card friends and Dr. Grant Pichet. Thank you, card friends and Dr. Grant Pichet.
Welcome back to Let's Talk Autism with Shannon and Nancy. That's in a little while. I want to make sure that you guys know that in a little while, Let's Talk Autism with Shannon and Nancy, two great guests, Ron Sanderson and Robin Hogerhuis, and we're thrilled about that. But right now, we're here with Dr. Doreen Grant-Pichet for Ask Dr. Doreen, and she is answering your questions. I want to take some that just came in just in the last commercial break. How can I help my 7-year-old stop picking his nose? When I volunteer in his class, I see this. I quietly ask him to get a tissue, and he gets angry at me and continues to pick. I don't want the other kids to tease him, and thank you for your suggestions.
Yeah. So I would, you know, it's a little bit hard to block that behavior because by each time it occurs, because it could be very frequent and it does get a lot of attention. So what I would do instead is I would reinforce an incompatible behavior. So I would probably, for instance, one thing you could do is, gosh, yeah, this is great. So, you know, go to any store like Target or something and buy a bunch of things that are like flats, like things that he could have a pile of things, and they've put a price tag on it, because picking those price tags off is the biggest nightmare of the universe. I don't know if you guys have experienced like trying to take a price tag off something that's stuck on. It's like, oh my Lord, and it comes into pieces and so on and so forth. And I think like keeping his hands occupied with something that's right in front of him, and it could be anything. It could be something that's benign to the school situation. So, you know, a card with a few stickers on it, where he does that every time he has the urge to actually pick his nose, because it's a very similar kind of behavior, picking at a piece of paper. And it'll be a small thing, and then you gradually can reduce the size of it, and just make sure that it's not easy to take off. You know, and the price tags are very good because they're made to come apart,
right?
So that people can't steal. So they're cut, you know, so they have little cuts. So price tags are a great thing because he'll have to do little bits of it, little pieces of it.
Okay.
That would be an easy way to get rid of it. It's a habit. Once you break the habit, and also pay attention. A lot of times our kids start to do those things if they have allergies. Perhaps he has a dry nose. Like, try to look into why he has developed that behavior to begin with. If he has allergies, you're going to want to make sure he uses a spray that moisturizes the nasal cavities and or maybe his lips as well, and so that he's comfortable. So later on, when this is finished, he doesn't have a sensation of having to go back to his nose.
Great.
Yeah, and you can also, you can fade this activity to something that's in his pocket, and he's just like picking at the price tag or something in his pocket. You can gradually fade it away.
Great. And we never used a nasal spray before, but we just, when I was sick and my son, I had pneumonia, my son had bronchitis, we found one at Sprouts that was water, grapefruit seed extract, which is very good for things,
awesome.
and xylitol, which is supposed to be good for things. So nothing horrible in there at Sprouts. So free plug for Sprouts. Okay, I have a 3-year-old that has pervasive developmental disorder, which is autism. Lately, he is really kicking, hitting, throwing, etc. It's when he's overexcited and happy, not out of anger. He seeks touch. How can I calm him when he gets so excited he has a hard time calming himself?
Okay. So PDD, pervasive developmental disorder, doesn't exist anymore. It's part of the ASD diagnosis now. It's part of the spectrum of autism spectrum disorders, ASD. And if you had PDD in the past, then you'd probably be classified as a 1-1 in the ASD spectrum right now, which means you have mild deficits in both social communication and in repetitive behaviors. Perhaps he has, it's a 1-2 or a 2-1. It could be a slightly higher severity level, but he's mildly affected with autism. And he kicks and so on and so forth when he's excited, which basically means that he has difficulty with regulating his own senses. When you get excited, you are producing a lot of neurotransmitters, which are elation, which cause various types of emotions like elation and so on and so forth. And so whether it's serotonin or dopamine that he's producing in those moments, he doesn't know how to downregulate. His body doesn't downregulate those things. So, and normally we do. So a lot of things that we do help us downregulate the neurotransmitters. So, it would be important to try to teach him techniques that would help him. But first, did the parents say the age of the child?
3.
3. So he's very young. So at this point, what you do is when he gets excited and he starts doing that sort of thing, you grab him and you just hold him really tight. So this is kind of like a bear hug. Like, you may want to massage his arms and legs or whatever it is, but you will hold him until he calms down. It's funny because these are the original premise of holding therapy, which was a lot of this. But having said that, what you're really doing is you're just kind of helping him to calm until his neurotransmitter burst is over. Over time, what you're going to look for is ways that he can take that over himself and downregulate. So, in the old days, we used to have these weighted vests. Weighted vests often help our kids downregulate. One of the things that would really help with your child is to have an area in his room and in various rooms, which is his calming area. So if he starts to feel that he's getting hyper and like all excited or something, you would send him to the area. You would actually say, go to your calm space. It could be like a little house in the corner of the room. It could be just a bean bag. Bean bags actually are very calming themselves. Biggest calming experience is rocking. When you rock back and forth like this, which not that I'm telling you to teach your child how to rock, but if there's a rocking chair that your child could sit in, by rocking you activate the parasympathetic system in your body, and once the parasympathetic nervous system is activated, you calm. That's why we rock babies. But so if you can teach him things that would activate the parasympathetic nervous system, it will downregulate. Rocking is the primary thing that will help. But also, I think a lot of our kids who are hyperstimulated like this and just need to learn to calm down, breathing exercises help them. He's a little bit young for that at 3. At 3, you'll be doing a lot of the calming for him. You'll be helping him. You can also use bodysuits, the bodysuits that the kids climb into, and they're pretty tight, and it keeps them in one contained space. That sensory all over his skin sensation will tend to calm him down.
Are those dry brushes?
Dry brushes might hyperactivate.
Okay.
It's got to be more something that is very enclosing, you know, like kind of like roll him up in a blanket.
Yeah, the burrito.
Exactly, the burrito. The things, it's very interesting. We're just writing an article on sensory inputs with autism. It's a very big factor. And there are specific activities that help down-regulate versus activities that stimulate. And you know who you should consult with a local OT who is trained in sensory integration. This is probably very important for you to do because, and you're going to be asking for activities that help down-regulate. I just know some because I've learned some from OTs, but I'm pretty sure OTs can give you a few more.
We have a great OT that's a semi-regular on the show that she has 2 sons on the autism spectrum as well, so she's an autism mom and she gets it. Her name is Kara Kaczynski. They call her the Pocket OT. She has a series of books that are great. She has a new book that's about to come out on weighted blankets.
That's fabulous, yeah.
In fact, I just did the review for it. My quote about it will be on the back cover of her book. And I think you find it really interesting.
Yeah, weighted blankets are awesome.
I'm going to make one. As soon as Autism Awareness Month is over, I have plans to make a weighted blanket because of this book.
It's interesting, Shannon, I have to say that although, you know, it's pretty expensive, but there's also a lady that produces these. She doesn't produce them for the purposes of weighted blankets, but she produces them with silver, actual silver, because what they do is they don't allow electromagnetic fields to enter the body, right?
Wow.
And they're extremely heavy because of the fact that it's built with silver. They're knitted into it.
Wow.
And so that's kind of an interesting concept as well.
Okay, I'll have to look more into that. Yeah. But very interesting. Okay, I'm going to move on to another question. We've got 2 questions about potty training. That one that's 4 and one that's 14. I'm going to start with the 14-year-old because it just came in. We're trying hard to potty train my 14-year-old nonverbal daughter. She gets very aggressive when we ask her to sit on the toilet. I don't want her to think that she can get out of it by hitting and knocking things over. I give her choices of books to take with her and play her music, which is her favorite, when she sits. Sometimes getting her to the bathroom is a nightmare. She has a PEX board that she doesn't use consistently. She gets reinforced when she eliminates. Thanks for your wonderful advice. I feel like I'm doing it all wrong. And she made a sad face. We're sending you air hugs.
Yes, we are. And don't ever feel like you're doing it all wrong. The fact that you're doing something makes it all right. So that's all that matters, is that you're attempting things. Now, first of all, I would, if I was personally going to potty train a 14-year-old, I would ask for help. So you need to have a therapist and someone who's board certified. Because potty training a 14-year-old nonverbal child is not easy. So what I want to start with here is you're reinforcing her for voiding in the potty, and that's great. But what you need to do is establish a desire for her to even go to the bathroom. That's where you're stuck. So those reinforcers that you mentioned, which is the music and books, don't allow her to have them during the day. They will then gain value. They will become highly valuable. And then you will be able to really get her to go sit down. I promise you. The hard part is not giving her those items the rest of the day. So you don't have to do it with both. She can have books the rest of the day. But music, which might be her most powerful, should only happen if she's sitting on the toilet. And then, of course, that will help her sit on the toilet for a longer period of time. And then she will have more successes. There is a specific procedure that I use. I always use the Fox and Nazarene procedure. People have made tons of modifications to this. It is available online. It's available in a lot of different books. But I do suggest that you use a BCBA and you follow a specific shaping procedure for potty training. It's not something you can do on your own, especially when the child's 14. And again, the biggest issue I think for you is to make sure you have a powerful reinforcer that she cannot access the rest of the time.
Okay, there's so many questions to choose from. I'm going to go to one that came in just recently. Hello, good morning. My son is currently attending a special day classroom. The teacher reports that he doesn't want to, and the verb is missing there, doesn't want to something the teachers, the aides, or the peers.
Listen to it, probably.
Probably. He's not doing classwork. I suggested to use reinforcements like food or something he likes in the classroom, but she says he doesn't like anything in the classroom. I told her that is behavior that he is avoiding. She said she doesn't think it's a behavior problem because he's not hitting anybody or tantruming in the classroom. At home, he talks to the family, does his homework. We are in the process of getting ABA services through your Arcadia Center.
Oh, good.
We have the intake appointment on April 18th. I was wondering if they could see him at school as part of the assessment.
Yes.
We also have our annual IEP at the end of this month, and I don't know how to approach the school. What do I do? And thank you so much for your help, and God bless you for all that you do.
Thank you very much. And God bless you too. And thank you for that. You will definitely, if you, at your intake appointment, which is coming up, tell the supervisor that you would like to make sure an evaluation is also done at the school. Tell them all these issues, and yes, then we will arrange an observation to see what's going on. If you're insurance funded, usually insurance will not cover anything at school, but we will roll this initial assessment into the intake so that basically it's an observation of different communities, different environments where your child isn't doing well. So we'll be able to see what's going on at school. And it's very important. If the child's doing very, very well at home and not so well at school, I'm pretty sure that we'll be able to figure out something that's going on, and then we'll have to change the environment. Having said that, you will still need to call an IEP. So in preparation for that, what I would suggest is that you have your intake on the 18th. I don't know how soon after that we'll be able to get you started, but potentially we'll be able to get a school meeting, an IEP, before the end of the school year, which means it'll have to happen in May or very early June.
It sounds like her IEP is already scheduled for the end of April.
End of April.
But you could ask for an extension.
Yes.
Or you can start the IEP but not sign it.
Yes. You'll probably, when we get involved with things like that, and here's what will happen. If you have insurance funding, it won't pay for our staff to go to the IEP with you. So you might have to independently pay for a supervisor to go to the IEP with you. But then once we recommend funding and get funding from your school district, from that point forward, your supervisor will be going to your IEPs, will be writing all the goals, will be doing all the things you need necessary for your school, for your IEPs and for functioning at the school. Be very clear, insurance companies are very strict about us not providing any services in the school setting unless we're funded by the schools, because they consider that to be educational and not medical necessity, which is I disagree with completely. But regardless, the point is that we would need to get involved with your school. Now, I don't know what district you're in. Each district has other types of issues as well, but we are contracted with all the districts in California, many districts across the country. And so we would probably be able to get some funding from your school. This is an issue that occurs in school. The school needs to also get involved and participate with us.
Yeah.
No, so they're in Arcadia. So they're going to the Arcadia office. So it could potentially be LA Unified.
Or Pasadena Unified.
Or Pasadena Unified. And both of those we've worked with. I mean, we have the largest contract with LA UST. So.
And you know, it's concerning that whoever the person is who's saying, I don't think it's behavior, but that's fixable.
Yeah.
That's very fixable.
And sometimes it's like people will say stuff like that, and it's not even worth the time to teach them differently. We just intervene, we get involved. Any kind, just blocking people out, not listening, not paying attention is a challenging behavior, and obviously something's up. Your child's either not getting reinforced adequately, or they have learned that they can space out during the day in school, or they're shy, they're embarrassed, maybe they're being bullied. I don't know, but something's up, because this is a very big contrast in behavior, and so your supervisor will get involved with this.
Yeah. We've only got 1 minute left, but I'd love to see if we can address this. Can you recommend activities or direct me to age-appropriate resources for my 20-year-old daughter with limited language and motor ability? She does seem to get offended with baby toys, but she needs stimulation and things to do, especially during school vacations. ESY is limited to 4 weeks in our district, and she tends to regress behaviorally at home. Finding things to keep her engaged is a very big challenge.
Yeah.
20 years old.
I know. So I don't know her functioning skills, but what I would really suggest is that you test out several different things. Like, some of our kids are fantastic at painting. I would really get her a bunch of paints and brushes and see what she can, let her go to town and see if that's something she gets into. I would try to teach her knitting. Knitting is something that a lot of our kids love and get engaged in. I would buy her a small synthesizer and see if she's musical or likes to play around with the music. So there's a lot of different things that you might want to like. Beads, get her a bunch of beads and see if she can string them and teach her how to string so she can make jewelry. There's a lot of things like this, and that's just right off the top of my head, but there's a lot of activities that not only could she enjoy, but she could actually produce a business from them.
Absolutely.
So all of these are like important things to try.
My mother made me hook rugs.
Yeah, there you go. I used to actually love that.
Right? And it's a very simple thing once you learn how to do it. It's a repetitive thing, but
absolutely.
you hook rugs.
Or get her a loom, like for
weave.
And with the weaving process, many of our kids really enjoy, and they can actually.
It's heavy work, which can be
it's
very
fantastic
good.
Stuff.
Yeah. And then of course there's the whole world of online. If she is able if she is able to get on the computer and use a mouse.
Yeah.
You say limited language and motor ability. I don't know if she can type but there's a whole world, whether it's games or socially, there's a whole world there.
The best place I think for you is to go to Michael's and walk around and each month maybe try 5 new things. I mean, they have like things like she could make soap, she could make candles, there's like a million things. Right, and if you learn them, you can also teach them to her yourself, but find her an activity. You absolutely have it right that it's important for her to engage in something, and find her an activity and she'll become productive and she'll enjoy it, and you can sell the products and she'll be earning an income for herself. It'll be very nice.
A little Etsy shop.
Exactly.
There we go. All right. Unfortunately, we're out of time. Thank you so much.
Thank you very
This
much.
is just so meaningful.
Always a
this
pleasure.
Hour. All right, we're going to take a break, and when we come back, it's time for Let's Talk Autism with Shannon and Nancy Alspaugh-Jackson, the Executive Director of Autism Care and Treatment Today, will be here with me, and our special guests are Ron Sandison. He's going to talk with us about autism and faith, and also Robin Hogerhuis is going to be the subject of our family portrait for today. So stick with us back, but here is first the A word.
This is Jack's morning routine. He just got out of bed. He's a happy guy. He's sitting with Dad, drinking some milk, watching some tunes. Hi, Jack.
Good morning.
Good morning.
How old are you, Jack?
2.
How old are you, Jack? Can you say good morning? Good morning. Good morning. Good. That's good. That's good. Sometimes he arranges the coins lately. He's been used to just put them straight in the piggy bank, and now he likes to play with them and arrange them. Nice.
Say more. Oh, good. That was a good M. Nice building. Good. More. Here you go. Yeah, we definitely want his scores to increase with him talking more. Because he knows everything and he knows what everything is, but just getting him to independently ask for things. Because we want to get him to man for things. At least
What are you saying? What's the word you use?
Manned.
Manned?
Manned.
As in?
As in like requesting. So he can say like the object, like he can say train, or he can say more, or he can say all done, anything to communicate with you. Because he has a language, but I don't think we give him enough opportunities to ask for things,
That makes
request for
sense.
things.
That makes sense. We just have to require it more.
Yeah, and then after that we'll move into more frames such as like I want train, I want this.
Okay, that makes sense.
Yeah.
That makes sense.
So I have Dad hold the train, and then have Daddy.
Daddy's
Look,
here.
Daddy has the train. So Mike, have him ask you for the tracks. You can even just hold it out in front of him, and then he'll even ask you.
More?
Okay. So here we go. Yeah, good talking. Very good. I've never seen him play train so intricately before.
He's been pretty much daily. He's asked for his train once.
Can you say give me? Okay.
Thank you. Good talking.
There
Good
you
talking,
go.
buddy. Good asking. Good asking.
Yeah, definitely his 2 syllables are just coming along really well.
Yeah. I mean, most of them are approximations, but they're the same every time. But he's a little sedate today, actually. I'm surprised. Excuse me. He gets concerned when I sneeze and cough. Daddy, are you okay? Yeah, I'm okay. See that?
That's the closest it sounded.
Cheryl thought of that.
Cute, Dad.
Can you say I love you? That's I love you. Same every time. It's kind of like yellow, but yellow doesn't melt us like that.
Hi, we're going to be working on some pictures. Let me get your picture first. What is it? Hands. Very good. Here you go. Here you go. He's doing a lot of imitating things, and in clinic the other day, we noticed that every time we said, "Look at me," he'd repeat it, but in his own way, so it comes out as "bebe." So every time I go, "Look at me," he's like, "Bebe, bebe." What is it? Hands. Hey, over here, look at me. Look at me. No, over here, look at me. Right here, there we go. That is a train. We'll play with it in just a second, okay? Hey, look at me. Now look at me. Right here, there are your eyes. What is it? Hands. Okay, you can go. Good job. Okay, go play. Do you want the book or the trains? Book or trains? Trains. Okay, good. Go play. Go play with your trains. Go ahead. You can go play now. Oh, you want to look at the pictures? More? More pictures? Here, you can look at the pictures. Here, want to show Suzanne what you know? How about let's look at the ones that you do know? Those are the ones that you don't know. Bunny. Wow, this is a lot more than I thought. What's that one? Chicken.
Oh, this one. Da 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 da.
Shop. You are so smart. Tiger. Tiger.
Nice.
Good job. Okay, what else? What's this one? Ellie. Oh, it's getting closer. Elephant. Getting closer. Lion. Lion. You do know a lot of animals.
Between last week and today, Jack is able to label more cards. He's interested in identifying the images and consequently building his vocabulary. As the weeks progress in his ABA therapy, so has his skills. In 2 months, he's gone from babbling to enunciating certain words clearly. With prompting, he's able to practice appropriate speech when playing and requesting objects. Eventually, the prompting will fade and he will do it on his own. Each new skill acquired builds on the previous one.
You're interested again? Here, why don't you go over there? Go over here and you can see better.
Train.
What's that?
Train.
Ooh, you want to move it for me? Show me your train. Say choo-choo. Yeah, move it.
Good morning. And welcome to Let's Talk Autism with Shannon and Nancy. I'm Nancy Alspaugh-Jackson.
And I'm Shannon Penrod.
Hello, my friend.
Hello.
I missed you last night at the premiere of Poe at Paramount Studios.
Yeah, I heard a bunch of you went. And
We
you had
did.
A really good time.
It was sold out. It was great. There were so many people there. Everybody was asking about you. You had a parent-teacher conference?
Well, I host, CARD has a PTA, but it's not a PTA. It's for parents that are truly amazing. It's just CARD parents, and it's a monthly call that I host with just CARD parents.
Which is so great of you to do.
Well, it's my pleasure, and that's a commitment that I make to them. And so when I found out about it, I was like, I cannot do the first Tuesday of the month. I'm busy. But I got to see the movie beforehand.
I know you did.
And what'd you think?
I was deeply moved.
Yes.
I thought Julian Fetter, the young actor who plays Poe, and I spoke to him after the screening, is nothing short. I agree with John Asher, the director, nothing short of astounding. This young man's performance. If whether you are in the world of autism or what, which would be hard not to today with the numbers, know somebody,
which we're
going to talk about. But his performance is so remarkable. I mean, we were kind of comparing it to a young Leo DiCaprio in What's Eating Gilbert Grape, and it's just a stunning performance.
Isn't it?
And he's going places, and I spoke to him after, and he was just wonderful. John Asher, who we had on the show last week, was glowing, and I met his mom, Joyce, who played Murray's wife on Mary Tyler Moore. She's so beautiful still. Oh my God!
Yeah.
And we've got a couple of pictures. I went with Frank and Marcia Hines, Marcia of the book I Know You're In There, who recovered her son, and there I am with my boyfriend Ed Asner, and there's Marcia, and there's Frank, her wonderful husband, and that's Ryan, who is now an aerospace engineer, who Marcia details in her book, I Know You're In There, his recovery from autism. And let's see, I think we have maybe another picture or two, Kelby. There's me and my boyfriend. I just love that man.
Was he telling you had spunk?
He said he's got spunk, and he copped a few feels when he put his arms around me. He always does. And there's Matt Asner, of course, and Marcia Hines. And there's the guy who is the voice of Donald Duck.
Wow.
I wish I knew. I mean, I was so excited to meet him. So we just had a grand old time, and it was emotional. I just have to say, I'm sorry, something just came over me. This community of autism parents is the most incredible community, and I'm so privileged to be a part of it. And the amount of people that came up to me last night, some who I don't even know, who know me through either Act Today or through this show, and have offered their admiration, love, and support since I lost my husband 2 months ago, and they're caring about Wyatt. And of course, this movie, Poe, has that as a central theme. The father in the movie loses his wife to cancer, and Poe has some regressions, and it was a very obviously personal experience for me.
And the director, when he was here, he wanted you to come so badly, but he wanted to make sure that you were going to be with people, because he said, I think it's going to hit you hard.
Marcia held my hand and had plenty of tissue. And the people that came up to me and embraced me, and even my darling Ed Asner, who I love so much, said, I heard you lost your husband. And he said, you're such a remarkable woman, and it just meant so much to me. So thank you all for your support, and I hope Poe gets out there.
Yes.
Because it needs to be seen.
It's a beautiful film, beautiful performances, lots of surprises. Now you know what I mean about being layered. Lots of surprises.
Layers.
We promised we wouldn't give any of them away.
Right.
But yes.
Okay.
Great.
So let's get to in the news. We were talking about the numbers, because last night John got up at the premiere and said, how many people here have either a child with autism, have a relative with autism, or know somebody with autism? Every single hand in the audience went up. Every single hand.
Yeah.
Hundreds and hundreds of people. So, Shannon, the new
and
numbers.
this is the first time that we're able to cover this, but last Thursday, very quietly, the CDC published their new numbers for autism prevalence. Now, there are lots of different numbers out there, but these are the ones that we track closely, not because they're perfect numbers, but because we can compare apples to apples, oranges to oranges. These numbers, I want everybody to be aware of what they are. These are the numbers for 2012. We get these every 4 years. We get it every 2 years, but it's 4 years behind. It's looking at 8-year-olds in 11 different areas of the United States. So this would be children who were born in 2003 or 2004, and they just take, they look and go, they look in two different places, both medically and at schools, to see how many kids, and then they come up with a number that says this is what the prevalence of autism it is. Now, you recall that in 1974, it was 1 in 5,000.
Right.
And then that number went to 1 in 2,500, which went to 1 in 1,000. Then suddenly it dipped to 1 in 500. In the year that my son was diagnosed in 2003, it was at 1 in 110. Then it went to 1 in 88. And then 2 years ago, it was 1 in 68. And this year, for the first time, they have said that it remained the same, but there is an asterisk after that remained the same. It's 1 in 68. They said about, if you read the actual report that they put out, they say it's about 1 in 68. And they say that they cannot confirm that the amount of autism has stayed steady because in the 11 areas that they sample, in 2 of them, the prevalence went up so substantially that it is breathtaking. In fact, that in New Jersey, I believe the number, I don't know that we have it right here, but it's in the 40s and the low 40s in New Jersey. And in one other place,
Maryland, right.
It also is
1 in 55.
1 in 55. So the asterisk here is that something is happening, but we don't know what. And it really behooves us to take a look at these numbers and figure out why.
It's interesting
this is not
because
to celebrate.
Right. Matt Asner spoke last night after John Asher, the director, who is the father of Evan. Jenny McCarthy is Evan's mother. And Matt got up and said, you know, I am the father of a child with autism, the brother of someone with autism, and back at the time my brother was diagnosed, it was 1 in 10,000. Right. And these numbers are, and now it's 1 in 46, right? 1 in 68, sorry.
Well, 1 in 46 boys.
Boys, 1 in 46 boys. So that was such a stunning statement. And, you know, we all just, we're just like shaking our heads like, you know, we're part of this tribe and we're part of this family and we want to affect change and the change is too slow and we want answers. So, and then the other stunning moment for me in the film was the names at the end when all the children's names come up, that because everybody involved with this film, aside from Julian Fetter, the main actor, and he now knows someone with autism because he studied kids with autism. But every single person involved in the film has a child on the spectrum.
Yes, a lot of autism dads in particular.
A lot of dads, yeah. So, you know, these are continue to be really disturbing numbers and not surprising, I think, to those of us in the community.
But I think, for me, the takeaway is if you're not asking questions, if this isn't making you go, about, okay, so if the numbers have stabilized in some places, why? What happened in 2003 and 2004 that stabilized those numbers? What didn't happen in New Jersey and Maryland that didn't stabilize those numbers? What is continuing to happen in New Jersey that's making those numbers?
And are there any clues to that, or is there someone we could have on?
I think there's a lot of clues to that, but you know, people just need to ask, what's happening?
Okay. Is there somebody that could come on and address that, perhaps?
You know, I'd be happy to have Chris Christie come on and talk about what might be happening in the state of New Jersey.
Yes, I'd be happy to have Bruce Springsteen do a concert to raise funds for kids in New Jersey that need a grant.
Bruce, you are the boss.
Or Bon Jovi, but I'm sorry, Bruce is up here.
How about both of them together?
Together, okay, let's do it.
Okay.
Okay, so what do you want to do next here? Apple's intensely moving film about the teen with autism. Everybody's talking about it.
Everybody's talking about it. It's a lovely little film that if you go on Facebook, you're going to get an opportunity to see it, about a nonverbal teenager. What's interesting to me was that I didn't realize until I got to the end of the movie that this is a teenager that's known to us because we did a story on him. I think it was not last summer, but the summer before when he was the valedictorian of his class. nonverbal, but did it from his iPad.
Amazing.
We did a story, and I actually had an opportunity to talk to his mom at that time. We didn't have them on the show, although we invited them on the show. They wanted to work it out, but he was very busy because he's, a busy young man. But it's a beautiful film.
It is.
And we really appreciate that Apple took the time to showcase that technology has the ability to do many things, and one of the many things that it can do is give a voice to some people that previously were overlooked. And I love what the mom says about just because you can't say anything doesn't mean that you don't have something to say.
Exactly. And it is beautiful. I would like to add that we do have a program at Act Today, Technology Today. We do not get any discounts from Apple. I salute them for making this film. I would really appreciate it if they would give us a discount on iPads.
Because that's what your iPads don't go to anything else other than to children who have communication
That's
deficits.
correct. And
that's
we get no discount, none, nothing.
Hello, Apple. Lovely opportunity. More children to videotape.
Yeah, and I'm sure the film costs money to make, and it's reaching a lot of people, and that's great because more people are buying iPads because of it. Let's get some discounts for our kids that we can't fund because we've got so many waiting for iPads.
And it was supposed to be in our packet. It's not, but both you and I watched, as someone that you know quite well, Matt Lauer, Nancy's ex-husband. All right, I've said it.
Okay, you said it. I don't want to be known as, I said to John Asher, do you hate being known as Jenny McCarthy's ex? And I said, because I happen to have been married to a famous person. And he said, it didn't really bother me. And I remember once saying to Matt, if I hear one more person say, when they hear I was married to Matt, you were married to Matt Lauer? And I'm like, what am I, chopped liver? And he goes, no, I think they mean the opposite, like you were married to him. Anyway, we're very good friends, and I adore Matt.
And I'm a big fan of Matt Lauer. He had Bob Wright.
Yes, he did.
On the Today Show last week, and we haven't been here since then. And Bob Wright, who he and his wife started Autism Speaks after his grandson
Suzanne Wright
was diagnosed. And he has a book out right now called The Right Stuff. And Matt was interviewing him. And in light of all the controversy happening at the Tribeca Film Festival
about Vaxxed, which our own Dr. Doreen Grant-Pichet is prominently featured in.
She is in the trailer from it, giving information about the prevalence of autism.
Yes.
And Matt asked the question, is the vaccine controversy ever going to be over? And I thought it was incredibly eloquent that Bob Wright said it will never be over as long as vaccines are one size fits all and people are not. I thought that was pretty eloquent.
I thought it was eloquent. I thought it was brave.
Oh, yeah.
Very brave, and hats off to Mr. Wright. And once again, our best to Suzanne, his wife, former First Lady of NBC, who I got to know in my TV days, and then founded Autism Speaks. She is battling pancreatic cancer. We love you, Suzanne.
Yes,
we wish you the best.
Thank you so much for everything that you do. Okay, one last story, and then we got to get our guests in because we got two amazing guests, and Kelby's about to kill us. But I saw this morning, breaking news in Brooklyn, a paraprofessional.
I've never heard it called paraprofessional.
Well, that's what they call AIDS a lot.
Okay.
They call them the paraprofessionals.
Okay.
That's how they refer to them in the IEP meetings.
Okay.
Well, the para, they'll say, we'll take care of this, that, or the other thing. A paraprofessional with, I believe he was an 11-year-old on the autism spectrum. They have video of them. I've seen the video. We're not going to show it here because I just don't believe in, but I will tell you that you can see in the video that the kid is sitting at the lunch table.
11-year-old boy.
There are two adults standing behind him, a woman who works for the school and the paraprofessional who's a man in his 40s or 50s, big guy. He's talking to the young boy on the spectrum, and the boy suddenly, with absolutely no tell before, reaches up as if to punch the para, right? And this is a very real thing. The paraprofessionals should be appropriately trained.
Knowing how to block, and ignore those behaviors.
But that is important that they get trained to do it. And I can't tell from the angle whether the kid connects with the para, but the para with absolutely no, instantaneously full-on POW, as they describe it. The school district describes
Full-on
it.
POW.
Punches
Yep.
the kid in the eye. He had to go to the emergency room, black and blue.
Anatoly Veltman and the father, Anatoly Sr., shared what his son looked like in the ER shortly after the punch was thrown. I saw a huge blue bruise above his eye. It was clear to me that he was punched with force, and somebody tells me then that it was in fact the paraprofessional assigned to children's safety. His reaction, asked what his reaction, he simply said, "I wouldn't believe it."
But it's on video.
But it's
true. You can see it online.
So it's there.
The guy did
in
plead
front of the
guilty
cameras.
to a misdemeanor assault last spring. They're saying that they're getting information about the civil matter. But unbelievable.
What I want to
But
know
I want to
is,
say,
go ahead.
everybody that has a paraprofessional, that's a parent out there, the one thing that you can do is ask, what training have they had? Have they had training? You know, in case my child reaches out to hit them, have they got training to block themselves? And if they don't, I tell you, there is a beautiful training on ibehavioraltraining.com. I think it costs $7. Get it for yourself as a parent to know how to block, and buy that for your paraprofessional. Teacher Appreciation Week is coming up. If your school's not going to do it, you do it.
I'll do that. I need to get it for my aides because
And it's great. I've seen the training. It's like, oh my gosh, why haven't we all had this
What
training?
is that information again for our parents?
ibehavioraltraining.com, and they have tons of videos on tons of different things, but about dealing with aggressive behavior, how to block it.
Okay. Very good.
What were you going to say?
Well, I was just going to say, where are they getting these people that they're hiring when there's so many people out there looking for work that want to help our kids?
Right, but you got to train them too.
Of course
once
you
you
do.
hire them, you have to train them.
Of course.
You can't expect people
But it's
to go
not
in and
hard.
be punched. It isn't hard.
You know, you mentioned a perfect way that these aides can be trained,
there.
and it's unconscionable.
Yes.
That's my new favorite word, unconscionable.
Love it.
That
Love it. I'm all
people
about
are
it.
not getting the training.
It is unconscionable.
So-
All right.
so
We've
there.
got great guests
Okay,
for you. We're
yeah.
going to take a break. When we come back, Robin Hogerhuis is going to be with us.
For our autism family portrait.
Yeah, a mom of 2 boys on the spectrum, and we love her. She's been on the show before. She's very involved with Fullerton Cares, and she now works for Skills because we saw her on the show and we loved her so much we introduced her to them. Anyway, so she's going to be with us and talk about her journey. And then a little bit later, we have Ron Sanderson talking about autism and faith. So stick with us.
Hi, I'm Kara Kaczynski, the Pocket Occupational Therapist, and we're here in Dallas, Texas at the Future Horizons Autism Super Conference. So the book is the Special Needs School Survival Guide, and it's everything you wanted to know about school. It is, okay, so it starts out with just different diagnoses that you might see, and then I explain them in clear terms, no technical jargon, and then each little diagnosis area has about, 50 to 100 activities that you can do at home or at school or cheaply and effectively. So it's just full of information that you can use right now. And the cool thing about it is at the end of every chapter are resources that you can use and access in the internet from a computer, and it's not just for kids with any diagnoses either. It's for kids that are just having trouble with handwriting or with dressing in school or transitions too. Well, both of my kids are on the autism spectrum, so it's important to me that when I learn something for other people, as I research it for occupational therapy, I want to try it at home. So then I take what works and I put it in a book, and what doesn't work gets thrown out the window. And the other thing is I've just started to research for webinars, because our kids, if our kids are aging, so they start out these cute little babies with autism, and now they're getting to be teenagers and young adults, and we need help with modifying the environment for them, transition planning, and especially for IEP goal writing, for functional things that they can work on, not just handwriting, but then going beyond into the transition to young adulthood. Yeah, the misnomer at this point in the school systems is that we just do handwriting. So we are actually not handwriting teachers. We can modify or help rectify a grip that's inefficient. So if a child doesn't have that nice, pretty little tripod grasp, we can help to get that. However, when the kid's in 2nd or 3rd grade, then we look at efficiency. So if the grasp is efficient, if it's a quadrupod grasp, or if it's some kind of funky grasp, and the child can write efficiently, then we leave it alone. But if not, then we go to electronic accommodations. So OTs then can look at keyboarding and what kinds of keyboards would fit the student best. Also sensory processing, as the kids get older, it looks different. So we can look at sensory processing as it relates to function in the school. And then we also can look at behavior and transition planning. Other things we can do is work on seating. So if the child's having trouble sitting still in the classroom, we can modify that too. So not just handwriting, not just sensory, but we look at behavior, transitions, so anything that affects that student's school day. Right, so that's a really good question, because sensory processing disorder did not make it into the last DSM, which is the way that medical professionals classify disorders. So it did make it into the classification under autism, but sensory processing disorder is very confusing, and a lot of therapists treat it differently. So the general overview is that sensory processing is either a heightened response to stimuli in the environment or a too low, which is hypo, response. So if the student perceives every noise around them is equally as important, or every feeling, so I'm sitting here, I can feel the chair, my sweater, the noise around me, then it's hard to concentrate and focus in the classroom on what you're supposed to be paying attention to. So we would use something, maybe a suggestion could be a weighted lap pad or some kind of fidget tool for the student to fidget with, or we can even look at special positioning in the classroom, so preferred seating. Then, with sensory, transitions can be hard because any unexpected bump in the classroom or in line can set the child off into a fight or flight, which is when they really have a tantrum and freak out. So when they're in a fight or flight mode, they may fly off the handle for no apparent reason, maybe just being bumped by another student. So it's our job to be detectives and to figure out why the student is having that meltdown. So my CDs were created for my own kids my son in kindergarten didn't like the fire drills. So he was afraid to even step foot into the classroom because the fire alarm may sound. Of course, the school's not going to say, oh, let's just set up the fire alarm for your son, Bob. You know, so we thought, where can we get a fire alarm? So we went into a recording studio and picked a whole plethora of sounds that you couldn't control, fireworks, thunder, sirens, and we put them on a CD, and I wrote nursery rhymes, changing the words to blender, blender, it's okay, or you know, different little, Mary had a little lamb is, you know, something to do with thunder. So they're kind of fun, and that way the student can control the volume of the sound. It's not a listening therapy, there's no headphones involved. It's just a fun way to control sounds that you normally couldn't control. So they're for sale at my website, thepocketot.com.
We're back. Welcome back to Let's Talk Autism with Shannon and Nancy. During the break, we welcomed Robin Hogerhuis. Am I saying it right?
Hogerhuis.
Hogerhuis. I thought I needed to get that liquidy U in there. Robin Hogerhuis, and I should, because I'm one of your biggest fans. I was saying before that you are just a remarkable person. We've had you on the show 2 times before for different things. I did not know until we were having you on this time that how you had begun was as a long-term substitute teacher for Orange County Department of Education in their special day classes. I know you to be a person in this field who is moving and shaking. When you came on the first time, we talked with you because you're on the board of Fullerton Cares, and you were talking about some of the amazing work that you're doing down in Fullerton and getting kids, training kids to be the person in a dance class and in a movement class, to be the person who's helping that child to be included. That's just, your book, you have to write a book about that, Robin.
I'd like to, I really like
You really do. So we had you on that, and I was so impressed with you. Like the whole time you were talking, I was like, this woman is amazing. I want her to stay here forever. And afterwards I said, you know, I want to introduce you to people around here and the offices around here. I took you in to meet the folks at Skills, and they hired you.
And tell us what you're doing now at Skills, Robin.
So at Skills, I'm the implementation support specialist, and I do training webinars, and I travel the country working with teachers and therapists, teaching them how to create treatment plans for children with autism. I also have several parents that utilize the Skills system in areas where they can't get services, for example, internationally or in rural areas, and I provide parent consult to parents implementing Skills in the home so that they can maximize their progress with skills, and it's an amazing job.
Well, we're so lucky to have you here.
No kidding.
But you're here today as part of our Autism Family Portrait Series because you are the mom of 2 affected boys. Tell us about your kids.
Okay, well, I am a mom, like you said, of 2 kids on the spectrum. It's interesting because I have both ends of the autism spectrum in my home, so I've kind of had both experiences as an autism mom. My oldest son's name is Ian. He's 11, severely affected by his autism and mildly affected by cerebral palsy, which kind of adds some issues to the autism. That being said, he is extraordinary. And
picture up there.
Look at those boys.
And he has made a tremendous amount of progress, primarily through applied behavior analysis. And then I have my youngest son, Harlan. He'll be 7 in June. He made it perfectly clear I was not allowed to say he was 6. He was yesterday was April 5th, and he told me I am exactly 2 months away from my 7th birthday. Said, okay.
He's counting the days.
That's
when you want to get older.
Right.
Yeah, I couldn't imagine. So he's very excited about his birthday. He is more mildly affected by his autism and now considered indistinguishable from his peers.
What do you attribute that to, Robin?
Again, applied behavior analysis. My stories with my boys are a little bit different. My oldest son, who's more severe, he did not reach his developmental milestones on time. And so I have that classic story of an autism mom circa 2007 fighting with the doctors and saying, but my baby's never uttered a sound. He's got autism. I know what I'm talking about.
He's a boy.
He's a boy. He'll talk late. Come and check in with us when he turns 3. That sort of thing.
Gosh.
So I had a classic experience. He did not experience a regression. He just never made his developmental milestones. My youngest, knowing everything that we knew about autism from literally the 3 months into his life, was enrolled in a study at UCLA that the Signan Research Lab was conducting to kind of get an idea about the genetic link. They wanted to look at infant siblings of children who had already been diagnosed to determine how many of those babies would be diagnosed. So he was very closely watched. Also, because of my training, we had been implementing a home program with the help of my son's then therapist, Megan.
So you were really on top of this. You had the red flags with your first son, and you made a decision that you were going to monitor your youngest son very, very carefully and do everything you could intervention-wise. Is that correct?
That's correct. So we had a really good therapist and supervisor at the time. Megan was the therapist, Stephanie was the supervisor, and I'll never forget them. They helped me put together a home program because, of course, you can't get services for a baby that you only suspect might get diagnosed someday.
Right.
But I felt services need to be in place. So I had my previous training, and I was currently getting my master's degree in applied behavior analysis. And so I was using the tools that I had and the support that they were giving me to implement a home program. So he was always in a home program, and he was always being very closely monitored at UCLA, either every 3 months or every 6 months. And he was actually, and I probably should have brought it, but I actually have him on video at 3 months old repeating hi, and so things like his language started developing very early. And we were very closely monitoring him. And sure enough, just after his 2nd birthday, he got a ton of back-to-back viral illnesses. Hand, foot, and mouth, roseola, all of those like nasty things that little ones get. But he got them, maybe he would be sick for 2 weeks, well for a week, and sick for 2 weeks again, and it was back-to-back. During this time, he started experiencing regression, and first it was behavioral, and so we thought, well, he's sick, so that's why he's acting out, or the terrible twos are emerging. And then some really funny things started happening with his language. He was an early talker, he was an early singer. And as a mom who loves music and going through what I went through with my oldest, who's mostly nonverbal, it was a dream that I had to hear a child sing, my child sing.
And that was now
he sang, and he stopped singing, and he started doing some really funny things with language, pronoun reversal, and things like that. So I immediately called UCLA.
Can I just ask you, what emotionally was that like for you?
So it was heart-wrenching because when I got pregnant with him, I approached my pregnancy as in, okay, so baby with autism is going to be born. In other words, I told myself, I approached it as, okay, let's get out in front of this. We have this. We know the genetic link. And every 6 months, I would get a report from UCLA saying no signs of autism, no signs of autism. And as soon as I let myself believe we weren't going to go through it again.
There you were.
He got diagnosed. And so it was heartbreaking. And then because I was experiencing regression with him, whereas with my older son, the diagnosis was almost a relief because it's like, okay, I knew it, now we can get help. My little one, because I was experiencing regression, I was doing things like waking him up in the middle of the night when he slept and saying, say mommy, say hi, because I thought he would lose his voice completely.
Right.
And I just was terrified. I didn't know what life was going to look like for him. And for like 6 months there, I had this hope of maybe we won't go through this again. And it was just that little time period that I let myself think that. And then of course they got the bomb dropped on me.
Yeah.
And there was no denying it. I mean, fast forward now, he's indistinguishable, and so people tell me, "Are you sure? Are you sure?" And I say, "Yes, I'm sure."
So tell us, for our viewers, what then were the steps that you took? Some of the concrete steps once you got the diagnosis and you knew, in fact, that this was real.
So the first thing I did was take him to UCLA because they had been studying him. They confirmed what I had feared. I immediately went to his pediatrician. And of course, this was now 2011. A whole lot had changed between 2007 and 2011. So his healthcare provider was much more on top of assessing and having a plan for that. They assessed him. They confirmed what I had seen.
And he was how old at that point?
He was about 2 years and 3 months old.
Okay.
So you're still on that early window.
We are. So they confirmed the diagnosis. I immediately moved on getting him regional center treatment that they provide for children before 3.
Right. Early start program.
Early start program. And he immediately, as luck would have it, was able to begin therapy with my son's therapist. So it was a therapist that had been in our home, someone he knew, and she was absolutely extraordinary.
So in that way, you benefited from having a child that came before.
I did. And, so I continued my home program, and then he began receiving direct services. And then when he turned 3, we had a very good experience in the Fullerton School District at Rolling Hills. Miss Debbie, an amazing preschool teacher in an autism-specific classroom that had reverse mainstreaming. So this preschool program had 4 typically developing 4-year-olds in the preschool class. And I just loved the program. And it was all done ABA style, which I very much credit applied behavior analysis. Once he turned 3, he didn't qualify for regional center funding. And our insurance company co-pays were outrageous. So instead of furthering my career in the field of autism, I stayed home a little bit extra so that I could continue the home program with him. Because I thought, do I go help kids with autism or do I help kids with autism at my house?
Right.
And so of course my own had to come first for then. But like I said, my son, he's now indistinguishable from his peers. He's been in a mainstream class since kindergarten, so he went from his autism preschool into a mainstream class. He's absolutely social, has friends, very motivated to play with his friends. He's very appropriate. He needs a little help in certain academic areas, and he takes it in stride, and he's very successful. Very successful.
Shannon, I don't know how we're doing on time, honey.
We don't have much more time.
Okay,
I just want to say one thing about how ironic in a wonderful way it is to me that when Skills first came out, I was thinking this is amazing for the parent who has nothing else. And a lot of people said, oh, a parent isn't going to be able to do this. This isn't going to be appropriate for a parent. Parents can't do a home program. Parents aren't going to be able to do, X, Y, and Z. And they saw how many parents will, because you do what you have to do.
Right.
And here you are. I can't think of anybody better working for Skills and helping parents than somebody who was doing it. And you know what it was like doing it without Skills, and now you can help parents to do it easier with Skills. I just think it's an amazing world.
You're a testament to the power of a parent doing a home program and how beneficial that can be for a child. Tell us a little bit now. Harlan's your younger one,
yes,
and Ian's your older one.
Ian is my
oldest. How do the boys interact with each other, and how do they help each other, and what do you see as some of the positive aspects of the relationship?
So watching my boys interact together is really, really a beautiful thing. I think Harlan was made it to almost 5 years old before he asked me, like, why can't Ian talk? Like, what's going on for Ian? Because he didn't know there was anything different or wrong with his brother. They love each other. Ian has a really hard time talking. Yes, they go on their hikes, and they're just very, very loving little boys. They really do get along, and they make up for not being able to talk to each other. They'll wrestle in the ways boys do, and they just have a lot of fun. Yeah, Ian will push Harlan on the swings. They go bowling. They really interact with each other, and it's very heartwarming. Of course, we've never told Harlan, you're going to have to take care of your brother someday or something like that. But recently, Harlan has been talking about, someday Ian's going to come and live at my house. And he told me the other day, hey, Mom, I want Ian to come and live at my house, but I'm going to have to take the Nintendo Wii and maybe the bunk bed.
He's got his priorities straight. I love that.
Because he knew he needed that for his brother, and so it's very, very heartwarming to see that bond. They love each other very much, and it's one of the reasons I can sleep at night is that they're bonded together like that.
Do we have time to hear Robin's most important advice to an autism parent?
Yes, we have.
What's your most important advice to our viewers and to other autism parents?
So my most important advice to an autism parent is not to compare your child to another child with autism or not.
Amen.
And never to compare yourself to another parent, either an autism parent or a parent of a child that's typically developing. We're all going through different struggles. We're all going through things that people can't see. I myself am guilty of the fact that, my oldest son, although he has made huge, huge strides, especially behaviorally, we dealt with a lot of maladaptive behaviors that are now decreased despite his severity. Behavior analysis really works. We worked through a lot of those struggles, but at the end of the day, my son is very challenged. He's almost nonverbal. He's 11, and I'm looking at him, and he's made a ton of progress, but he's always going to need someone to watch after him, and that worries me. And so my most important advice to an autism mom is measure your child's progress against themselves. If I look at where my son was 5 years ago, even 3 years ago, if you would have told me that I had a job where I traveled the country and had to leave them for a few days, I would have laughed at you. And now, of course, I can't leave and travel without the support of their dad, who takes amazing care of them. He's who took a lot of those pictures. A lot of those pictures were sent to me while I was traveling, so that I could see what they were doing. And also my mom, who, happy birthday, Mommy. She's in Israel. She's in Israel right now, but today's her birthday, and without her and also their other grandmother, Chris, definitely is a group effort to watch my kids while I'm gone. But that being said, I would have never thought that I could even go to the supermarket alone, let alone across the country, to do a really amazing job. And so I want to tell you that behavior analysis works. Measure your child's progress against himself, not against others. And like I said, I had been guilty of looking at other children with autism who seemed to be making more progress than my son and saying, well, why? We're doing everything. Is there something I'm doing wrong? You cannot compare your experience to another autism parent's experience. You just can't do it.
We each have our own path to walk, don't we?
That's right. So when you want to see how far you've come, think about the progress you've made in dealing with the grief, and think about the progress as autism moms that we've all made. And I think we were kind of talking about this on the break. Yeah. We know the system.
Yes, we do.
Don't mess with an autism mom.
Right. And so think of the progress.
A prayer and a plan.
Think of the progress that we've made, and then think of the progress your kiddos have made. Think about where your children were when you got the diagnosis. Think about where your children were even a year or 2 years ago. And the progress is huge. And when you think about that, and you think about, yes, these treatments in applied behavior analysis work, there's hope, there's light at the end of our tunnel. When you think about those things, it makes the experience easier to deal with.
It sure does. Thank you for such an important lesson, Robin, and thank you for coming on today. I know our parents at home are so inspired by you.
Absolutely.
Thank you for having me. It's an honor, and I'm big fans of yours as well, both of you.
We're huge fans of yours. We're going to take a short break. When we come back, it's going to be with Ron Sanderson, an amazing
really
gentleman,
inspiring
very
gentleman on the spectrum.
And we are going to run a little bit over because we were just going to run a little bit over, but I will be here, and I don't know if you're able to stay to say goodbye at the end. Okay. All right. So here's a break first, and then Ron Sanderson. Stick with us.
Hi, and welcome back to Let's Talk Autism with Shannon and Nancy. We have a very distinguished guest today who we've been tracking down for quite a while to try to get him on the show, Ron Sanderson. Good morning, Ron.
Good morning.
Where are you coming to? Where are you coming to from today? Michigan?
Rochester Hills, Michigan. I went to the same high school as Madonna.
Okay, well, that's a claim to fame, right?
It is.
Well, Ron, I'm going to just say a few things that you've done here because your accomplishments are very extensive. You work full-time in the medical field. You're a professor of theology at Destiny School of Ministry. You're advisory board member of the Autism Society Faith Initiative of Autism Society of America. You have a Master of Divinity from Oral Roberts University. And your book, A Parent's Guide to Autism, Practical Advice, Biblical Wisdom, just came out yesterday. Is that correct?
That's correct, yep. I got a copy right here.
I cannot wait to read this book. You have memorized over 10,000 scriptures. Now I know the guy to call when I'm looking for one of those, including 22 books of the New Testament and over 5,000 quotes. You have been published extensively, Ron. Autism Speaks, Autism Society of America, Autism File. I mean, it goes on. And you speak at conferences, centers, churches, and Shannon and I both want to say congratulations, right, Shannon?
Absolutely. Congratulations on your book.
And your baby girl.
Yes, and your baby girl. I didn't know where you were going with that.
Okay.
Yes, you're a new dad. A baby girl just 2 weeks old, so we really want to congratulate you on that.
You and your wife, Kristen.
And all of these things are really wonderful, and we're excited to have you on the show to talk about autism and faith. But we also need to mention that you yourself have an autism spectrum diagnosis. Is that correct?
Yep, I was diagnosed at age 7 as having autism. The school originally wanted to diagnose me emotionally impaired. My mom said it's not emotional, it's neurological. And if you can't tell me what's wrong with my son, I'll pay and have testing done. She paid to have testing done. Henry Ford Hospital declared in 1982 that indeed my disability was neurological and was autism.
And that was when you were 7 years old, Ron?
Between 7 and 8. And the experts at the time told my mom I'd never read beyond a 7th grade level, never have meaningful relationships, never excel in academics or at sports. And my mom was determined to prove all of them wrong.
Well, she did that, didn't she? It sounds like you had just
yep.
an amazing mother. Now, let's talk about some of the methods your mother used to help you overcome some of your quirks and things that were, getting in the way of functioning.
I like to call it autism refined. And she was inspired by Proverbs 22:29. You see a man skilled in his labor? He was served before kings. He was not served before obscure men. And when I was diagnosed at age 7, between 7 and 8, the school wanted to put me in special education. And the special education in Oakland County at that time was archaic. Basically, they just babysat you. And my mom said to the special ed teachers in the department, if you put my son in this special education, the best he'll ever do is pump gas. The best he'll ever do is be a dishwasher. The best he'll ever be is a bagger. But my son has great gifts, and I'm going to refine his gifts, and I'm going to use those gifts, and he's going to be able to serve before kings and not obscure men doing those other professions.
Well,
she was determined to help me succeed.
Your mom is our kind of people, Ron. And we talk a lot on the show about how important it is to find what your child is interested in and use that as a way to help them gain access to the world. Now, I understand that you had a particular interest in prairie dogs. What did your mom do with it? Because that seems kind of, out there for me, but what did your mom do with that interest?
And I got Prairie Pup here right here today. What my mom did is she took my interest in prairie dogs and she used artwork. And by developing my ability with art, I was able to communicate. A lot of times with autism, we're visual learners. And I tell people when I speak before audience, I just got back from speaking in Jupiter, Florida at Ernie L's All for Autism conference. He had me as a keynote speaker, their director. And what I like to share is that I have more RAM space than everyone in the audience, except for maybe other people on the spectrum, but I have zero ability for phonetics. I can't learn anything phonetically. If I hear something, I'm not able to generalize it, I'm not able to process it, but if I see something, I'm able to remember it the rest of my life. I can remember things even when I was 1 year old. I'll tell a story, and my mom's like, how do you remember that? You were just a baby when that happened. But I'll still remember because my visual and my RAM space is so great where there's no phonetic ability.
That's interesting, just like Temple Grandin, thinking in pictures, right,
Just
Ron?
like Temple Grandin, I see everything in pictures.
Yes, and so does my son. Now, you, so your mom built on that interest in prairie dogs. You had a lot of sensory issues, you said, with smells and sounds. How did you deal with those?
What I like to do, I always bring this illustration when I speak. Most people are like bottled water. They get shaken up. They may let off a little steam, but not much is happening. I'm more like this, Mountain Dew. I get shaken up, I'm carbonated. You open up the dew, and then you got a can of whip. And I also call my meltdowns my honey badger moments. So when I go and speak, I bring my honey badger and I bring my prairie dog. With me, my sensory issues had to do with sound. If you're using power tools, it'd make me be on edge. Or if there was certain smells like bleach. If my mom used bleach, a week after she used it, I could still smell it. With my wife, she has to use her nail polish when on the days that I'm, on the weekends that I'm working so that I don't smell it when I get home. And she has to do it outside on the porch because otherwise I'm going to smell that nail polish. And just 2 weeks ago, I was over at my parents' house and I had a popsicle because they have little my niece and nephews were over there. And when I ate a popsicle, I had this bad taste in my mouth, and I said, it tastes like salmon. My parents said, well, 2 weeks ago in the refrigerator, we had some salmon in there, but it's been gone for 2 weeks. But even after 2 weeks, even a box of popsicles that never touched the salmon or never were even in there during the same time, I can still taste the salmon. That's how good my sensory issues work.
Wow.
And as a kid, that popsicle, I would have had a meltdown, but now as an adult, I'm able to process it and able to deal with it in such a way that I don't have a honey badger moment.
But I'm really curious, Ron, about how your mom, you said, taught you to control your emotions and overcome your meltdowns. What were some of those coping mechanisms?
One was exposure. You've seen the TV show that they had. It was based on the psychology of exposure, where someone's afraid of snakes and they take non-poisonous snakes and they throw them in a pit with snakes. But what she did is she did it slowly over time. So things that I were paranoid about or things that gave me a lot of anxiety, she'd reward me with things I like. Maybe a stuffed animal of a squirrel or a stuffed animal or a bear, and then slowly expose me to those things I didn't like loud sounds. It started out with a slow sound where I'd have to approach and get the reward to be able to get the things that I wanted and be able to be around the sensory issues. She also used art books, and right here is one of them, and I draw the pictures, and then I narrate them, and she'd write the words, and then when she'd write the words of my stories, then she'd go through them and point to the picture and say, this is what the word is for that. And I was able to memorize all the words quickly and was able to learn how to read based on her using art. She was an art teacher, and when she found out I was diagnosed on the spectrum, she quit her job as an art teacher, and I like the joke she became a Ron teacher, which was even harder than teaching art.
Is your mom still alive?
She's still alive, yeah.
I think we got to have your mom on the show. I
agree.
Yes, she'd love to be on the show.
Okay, because this woman is a powerhouse, and I think she has so much to share. She was a real pioneer in helping you, Ron, to overcome some of the more crippling aspects of autism. Now, you also got involved in track and cross country, and that was a real breakthrough for you. Tell us a little bit about that.
With me, when I become interested in something, I become fully focused. And it started out, as I mentioned, with prairie dogs. And Prairie Pup, I carried him everywhere from kindergarten all the way till 6th grade. And what I like to joke is that in 6th grade, Prairie Pup became officially the first prairie dog expelled from public schools. And I like to say, thank God my special interest wasn't a honey badger, because they would have expelled an angry, agitated beast like a honey badger. I don't think they would have been able to do it, the principal. So when Prairie Pup got expelled from public schools, my interest became baseball. I ate and breathed baseball. And coming into 8th grade, I was on the baseball team, the wrestling team, or not the baseball team, I was on the football team, the wrestling team, to get in shape to be on the baseball team. Then came tryouts, and they announced who made the baseball team. And I'll never forget, I had tears rolling down my eyes because I was the second best baseball player trying out, and I was fully focused on baseball. And when I didn't make the team, I went to the coach and said, how come I didn't make the team? And he looked at me and said, son, you're the second best baseball player in this school, but what you don't realize is you're the fastest runner by far. You run track and cross country in middle school and in high school, you'll get full ride to college. That's how fast I believe you are. So I ran on the track team beginning in 8th grade and set 3 school records. Then coming in my junior year, I found out the real reason I didn't make the baseball team. Philip Yancey said, faith is believing in advance will only make sense in reverse. And coming in my junior year on the track team, we finished 12th in the state of Michigan for the 3,200 relay. And on the way back from the track meet, Nate Clay, our star anchor on our relay, said to Coach Bud, next year we'd be the fastest relay in the state of Michigan. Well, we won't have Ron on our relay team because it'll be past the age limit. And right then I heard the voice of God speak to my heart and said, I'll provide a way for you to run on the track team. You'll run next year. And I looked at Nate Clay and I looked at Coach Bud, and I said, next year I'm going to be on that relay team. And Coach Bud looked at me and laughed and said, in the last 20 years, there's been no one who's been able to compete past the age limit. And the reason I was past the age limit is in kindergarten, I was held back due to lacking the social skills, due to lacking the communication skills from autism. And my mom contacted the Michigan High School Athletic Association and said, my son's past the age limit due to autism. And they said, we will not let your son compete on the track team. And they told my mom, in the last 20 years since we've made that rule, no one's competed past the age limit. And I told my mom, I'm going to run on the track team. I don't know how it's going to happen, but it's going to happen. My mom contacted every lawyer in the state of Michigan, calling everyone she could think of. And every lawyer said it'll cost you $40,000, which we couldn't afford. And I came back from a 5-mile run, which I did every day, and I got the newspaper. And there on the front page of the Detroit Free Press was a man named Craig Stanley. He was going to turn 19 years old his senior year of high school, and he was born May 1975, the same year and month I was born. He was a track and cross country runner like I was, and he was past the age limit. So my mom called his mom. Our families got together. Their family said we called every lawyer. My mom said, let me guess, they told you it'll be 40,000. And they said that's exactly what they said, 40,000 or more. And I looked at the Stanleys and I said, next year Craig and I are going to run on that track team. I don't know how it's going to happen, but it's going to happen. And time was quickly coming for the season of cross country to begin. And during this time, I gave my life to Christ my junior year of high school, and it was on my heart to get water baptized. And my mom did one more article announcing that now there's 2 kids who are past the age limit, Craig and Ron, and I got baptized on a Sunday. When I came out of the water, Pastor Rob Fisk looked at me and he said, I know this Bible verse is for you, Joel 2:25. I repaid the years of the locusts, the great locusts, the young locusts, the other locusts, locust swarms, my great army I sent among you. He said there was a great army of locusts that came into your life. It might have been a disability, it might have been something else, but today your blessing is going to begin. And I got home June 10th from getting water baptized, 1994, and the answering machine was blinking red. And when I pressed the button, it was a young lawyer named Rick Landell, and he said, I feel inspired to take your case. And I knew that the exact time he was calling was the time I was coming out of the water. It was the time I was getting the word from Rob Fisk, or Pastor Rob Fisk, that a blessing was coming in my life, and he said, I want to take your case pro bono. And then I found out the real reason I didn't make the baseball team. When I met with Rick Landell, I told him my story, but I never told him one important part of my story, that baseball was my sport. And as he walked us out to the parking lot, announcing he was taking our case, he looked at me and said, it's a good thing your sport wasn't baseball. And I turned white as a ghost, because I was thinking, how did he know that my special interest for a year and a half was baseball? And he said, because if your sport was baseball, I couldn't take your case. Because 4 years ago, and it was 4 years ago that I didn't make the baseball team, there was a young guy in Kentucky who sued under the ADA, Americans with Disabilities Act, to play baseball. And they said that since it was a contact sport, he couldn't play baseball. But track's not a contact sport, so you won't be watching from the stands, you'll be competing. And he took our case. We ran the second fastest time in the state of Michigan. My case went all the way to the Supreme Court in Cincinnati. And then it would have gone to the Supreme Court, but since I had already competed, I already set the records, it was decided to be mute.
Ron, this is just an astounding story. We're running short on time here. We got to go in a minute. I just want to say a couple of things. Your book, A Parent's Guide to Autism, your new book, Practical Advice, Biblical Wisdom. How do our viewers get that book, and how can they access, other things about you, where to hear you speak, all of these things?
And to get the Parent's Guide to Autism, Practical Advice, Biblical Wisdom, they can go on Amazon to get it. They can go to Barnes & Nobles. They can go to Christian Family bookstores. So it's a national publisher that I got to pick it up, Charisma House, which is the 3rd biggest Christian publishing house out there. And they can get information on where I'm speaking and on my engagements if they go to SpectrumInclusion.com. Again, SpectrumInclusion.com is my website. And the reason I call it Spectrum Inclusion is because, I was given the ability to compete on the track team. I've been able to work in the medical field. My goal is to help mentor young adults with autism to be able to gain independence, gain employment, and be included. Even though they're part of the spectrum, they're included in every activity that neurotypical people are able to participate in.
Well, your story's remarkable. What's your mom's name?
My mom's name is Janet Sanderson.
Janet Sanderson.
Give her a hug from us.
Just
Thanks, I'll give her a hug.
And Ron, we hope many people will visit your website, SpectrumInclusion.com, to find out what more you're up to. Good luck with the book. I, for one, am getting it. I can't wait, and I know who to call when I'm looking for a scripture and I can't find it, okay?
Thanks so much. And I was going to say, too, I'd love to come out and speak to your church sometime. I'm speaking at over 20 churches in the next 3 months, and I also, in college, mentored and interned under Dr. Jack Van Impe, the international evangelist who also has over 10,000 Bible verses memorized, too, like I do.
I would love to have you speak at my church, and let's stay in touch on that, because if you're coming out to California, we'll definitely get you, and we'll get a big crowd to come hear you.
Ron, thank you so much for being with us today, and give our best to your mom.
I'll give the best to my mom, and I'm sure she'd love to be on your show, too.
All right, well, we're going to have her on, so I'll be in
touch
touch with you about that. Shannon and I will be in touch. Thank you so much, Ron. Have a great day.
Thanks, Ron. We're going to take a short break, and then we're going to be back with more Let's Talk Autism with Shannon and Nancy after these messages. And we're back.
We're back.
And
we're ending because we're
ending.
over.
We're completely out of time. So I want to thank you guys. We're back next week on Wednesday and Thursday. Great shows for you, but not even time to talk about that. Thank you for being here.
Thank you for having me. As always, love being here with you, Shannon.
And we didn't get a chance to talk about the autism walk, so I promise that we're going to talk about that tomorrow.
Okay. And we also and
we're here tomorrow.
Yes, tomorrow you're here, and next week I think we're going to be focusing on our Active Day for Military Families event, Run Walk Festival down in San Diego.
And can I say tomorrow we're having We Rock the Spectrum on. Dina Kimmel is going to be on with us tomorrow, and we have 2 people from Fullerton Cares. We're having Summer Dabbs and the fabulous Larry Hauser are going to be on the show tomorrow. Plus a lot more, and we're debuting the film with Nick Yates tomorrow, the short film that we did with him. So that's all happening tomorrow. We love you. Please give your kiddos a hug from me.
And yourselves a hug from me.
Bye-bye for now.